Welcome, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Lisa MacLeod, the MPP for Nepean Carleton and a proud supporter of Richard Ciano. We're here today in Brampton on the phone and watching live on www.timetowin.ca. Again, I'm Lisa MacLeod, and I'm here tonight to host this event to launch Richard Ciano's detailed platform for President of the Ontario PC Party. It's significant that while we're talking about how to win the next election, that we're here with Richard, who's launching a bold policy platform to win. It's a detailed platform, and I encourage everyone to read it, at least the sections that interest you. And you can find that at www.timetowin.ca/platform. I'm supporting Richard Ciano for a few reasons. The first, Richard and I have a long history with the Federal Conservative Party, and I first met Richard as one of our vice presidents during that important founding stage back in 2004. I feel he is more than capable in reorganizing the Ontario PC Party so that we can ensure that ridings like the one we are in here in Brampton tonight can be won in the next election. In addition, it was Richard Ciano's firm, along with his colleague Nick Kouvalis, who did my get out the vote and voter ID in the last election. And I'm proud to say with their help, we had the highest vote total of any candidate in any party across Ontario, ringing in just under 30,000 votes. And I'm eternally grateful for the great work that they did for my campaign, particularly when I was out on the road and many times here in Brampton. I'm joined here tonight with a growing team that has endorsed Richard Ciano. As many of you know, 10 of my caucus colleagues have joined with us to support Richard Ciano, including the campaign co-chairs, Peter Sherman, as well as Vic Fideli. Tonight we're joined in Brampton with Greg Shirk, who ran a great campaign in Guelph. We're also here with Sanjeev Manji, our candidate in Bramley-Gore-Malton. And finally, I'd like to introduce our candidate in Brampton-Springdale, who's also running to be first vice president of our party, a good friend of mine, a good friend of this party, Pam Hundle. Congratulations, all of you. I think that speaks to why people are lining up behind Richard Ciano, because he has the vision of how to bring us back to victory, because it's time to win. I'd like to take a few moments to mention a few things about how tonight's town hall session will work. Richard will speak about the platform that he released earlier today. After that, we will take questions. We are going to try and take questions from the phone, as well as from the live web chat. If you are on the phone and wish to ask a question, press *3, and you will be put in the queue. Press the star button, and then the number 3. Online, to enter the chat area, click on the right arrow on the right side of the video and click on chat. You can put your questions in the chat room and I will read them off. We won't be able to get to everyone tonight, though we wish we could. So if your question hasn't been asked, please feel free to email our campaign directly to Richard. His email address, and he is very accessible, is richard@richardciano.ca. Also note that if you are listening on the phone and also watching the web live stream at timetowin.ca, there will be a 3 or 4 second delay on the web stream. So you might want to choose which audio to listen to. And I say that because I know my good friend Steve Clark likes to watch these on his iPad as well as listen on the phone, because he's a big supporter of you in Brockville. So without further ado, I'd like to introduce the next president of the Ontario Progressive Conservative Party, Richard Ciano.
Thanks, everyone, and thank you, all of you who are joining me here in the room, those of you who are watching online, and those of you who are on the phone as well. It's a very exciting evening for me as a candidate, and certainly for my entire team. We spent a fair bit of time working on a detailed platform, which I'll introduce to you tonight. My plan to engage our members, strengthen our riding associations, and prepare to win the next election. It's been really gratifying to see the various commentary coming in. When we released it this morning, we actually opened a comment forum on the website and just allowed people to come on and make comments as they saw fit. And of course, people were posting it to Twitter and so on. And I thought one of the most interesting comments was somebody who put that they were with me, they supported me, but I had to do something about my Trudeau-esque hair. And I thought, boy, that's someone who really knows how to hurt a guy. Not only because, you know, who wants to be, if you're a conservative, compared to Trudeau, even in something so trivial as hair, but I couldn't help but think, are we talking about Justin, or are we talking about the father? Because I'm conscious of my hairline, too, is starting to go as I age a little bit. So that was fun to see. In the room, I did also want to just emphasize, as Lisa said, I'm really pleased to be joined by candidates Greg Shirk from Guelph, Sanjeev Mangi from Bramley-Gormalton, and Pam Hundle from Brampton-Springdale, who's also my preferred choice as the first vice president of the party after the convention in February. So thanks very much for joining me. We're also joined by Jag Badwell, who's a candidate for regional vice president from this area. And Harjeet Jaswal is here as well, who's a candidate for the Fund Board. So thank you for joining me. And good luck to both of you. My plan has 5 main pillars. Building a member service culture in the party, fair, open, and competitive candidate nominations, meaningful policy and platform development, training, development, and outreach, and supports that work in ridings. Those won't be a shock to anybody who's followed the campaign so far. I've always talked about free, fair, and open nominations, training, and a need for emphasis on training in the party, fair and open nominations, and a rejuvenated member-driven policy development process, and local support for local campaigns. So they are just a slightly different way of breaking down those 3 themes that we've talked about from the beginning. Election day in 2011 came as a shock to most of us in our party. We had been optimistic about the result, and I think we were right to be optimistic. The public was turning its back on Dalton McGuinty and the Liberals, and they were ready to support Tim Hudak. And why didn't we win? Well, I thought the leader performed extremely admirably on the hustings. I thought, as a first-time leader against a seasoned opponent, he did very, very well, and he deserves our strong support and endorsement at the convention in February. But party volunteers and supporters tell me that our platform lacked the detail that voters wanted, failed to inspire, and didn't distinguish us from our opponents enough. Candidates and campaign teams tell me as well that they were hampered by a lack of resources, particularly volunteers and funds, and also by a rigid campaign that didn't allow them to adapt their local campaign to meet their needs. Our parties drifted away from the traditional local strengths that have lifted us to back-to-back majority governments in 1995 and 1999. Meaningful and principled policy development, engaged and enthusiastic volunteers and teams working across the province in harmony with our leader and our party. Our party's become an increasingly centrally controlled, top-down regime, tone-deaf to our members and supporter base, and blind to our shortcomings. And the unintended consequence of that is, and that central control, is that party members and supporters are frustrated, disillusioned, and really, really angry. As I've traveled around to delegate selection meetings and other events with our party members and volunteers, supporters and members have expressed their frustration to me. They want our leader and our party to win really badly, and it's vital to Ontario's future that we win. The way the party has run has got to change if we're going to win. And my platform sets out a plan for how we can change and how we can win. So let's start by taking a look at some of the key parts of that plan. First of all, I'll start with the pillar of building a member service culture in the party. We have to remember why members join a political party. Maybe they want to influence provincial policy. Maybe they want to be an MPP or have a say in how the party is run or policy and so on. We have to respect these motives and these desires, and we have to listen and heed the wishes of our members and why they decided to become part of our party. This is something that through the central operations of our party, for some reason and somehow, we've forgotten how to do. We've got to change the attitude of the party executive, of headquarters, of the campaign team, to recognize and place emphasis on member service. As president of the party, I'll foster a culture of member service, supported by the party executive that will permeate throughout all the operations of the party. Member service means a few things, but certainly it means when you ask a question, you should get an answer in a timely fashion, and that your opinions and suggestions should be listened to. I'm going to establish a few very specific processes to facilitate that feedback from our members. Number one, I think we should have periodic member satisfaction surveys to get evaluations of the party executive, of headquarters, and of the campaign team. I think that we should have full membership telephone town hall events, not unlike this one, every 6 months for all members of the party to hear updates, ask questions, and to offer suggestions. I also think we should have regional roundtable meetings promoted, and open to all members of the party for meaningful discussions every 6 months. So those would be staggered with the telephone town hall meetings so that we're getting that feedback every 3 months from our members. I'm also going to be personally accountable to you by publishing a quarterly report to all of our members. I'm going to keep this platform that is referred to, that you can find online at timetowin.ca/platform. I'm going to keep it online throughout the duration of my term so that you can measure my performance against it. And I'm also going to be subject to regular member satisfaction surveys. I'm also going to publish party executive meeting minutes, survey conclusions, and other reports. And overall, we're going to work to change the attitude of the central operations of our party to making member service a priority and to letting members hold us accountable. My second part of the platform is fair, open, and competitive candidate nominations. It's absolutely a fundamental aspect of membership in our party that you should have a say in who your local candidate is. We need to respect our members' right to have a choice in who they are represented by at the local level as their candidate. When the party imposes a centrally appointed candidate or prevents others from running, the resulting candidate often comes with no team and no local volunteer support. Imposing these centrally appointed candidates alienates longtime volunteers and members and leaves the campaign with just a skeleton of local organization. This has to change if we're going to win. We need to create, first and foremost, a uniform certification process for nomination candidates. The party has to establish clear and consistent guidelines for a potential candidate to go through what I call the green light process. Basically, the candidate applies to be a candidate. The background checks are done, not just criminal history, but also other due diligence into and the search for sort of other egregious factors. And upon passing those checks, in a criteria determined by the party, the candidate should receive the go-ahead to run. This doesn't give the candidate the nomination, I want to be clear. It just gives them the green light to stand for the nomination. The local members will choose who their candidate is. And I think that process has to be done in a timely fashion so that candidates, if it's decided by the party that they're not suitable to stand as a candidate, that they can move on with their lives and do something else. We've got to also establish rules for our nomination meetings that are fair and that are consistent and that set out clear and achievable targets such as member recruitment, fundraising, and candidate search. The party mustn't prevent a riding association from holding their nomination meeting once they've met those requirements. The nomination process overall has to attract, not drive away, the members and volunteers who do the real work in our ridings across the province. The next pillar is meaningful policy and platform development, the next section of my platform. Our policies have to be principled, and they have to be based on the views of party members. Our party constitution lays out a strong and vigorous and well-articulated policy process in Articles 18 and 19 of the party constitution. We just need to follow it. The policy development process in the last 3 election cycles has been neither meaningful nor effective because our policy platforms in those last 3 elections did not reflect what was proposed by our members. That's a shame, since so many of our members and volunteers have spent countless hours delivering creative, innovative, and principled policies for our party. The failure to integrate those policies proposed by our membership or through the policy advisory committees was acknowledged after the 2003 and 2007 election losses. But both times, the party promised not to repeat the mistake. But we did it in 2011 anyways. And we witnessed the 3rd election failure in a row for the very same reason. In contrast, when our party followed those processes in 1995 and 1999, we won. This is how I'll ensure meaningful policy and platform development. I'll insist that we follow the policy requirements set out in our party's constitution, including the PAC process, and will establish the policy committee of the party as set out in our constitution. I'm also proposing an accountability measure so that the central campaign team will be held accountable by being required to report to the policy committee of the party why they used, changed, or ignored recommendations from the policy advisory committees. I also propose to jumpstart and complete the policy process in 2012 to make sure that we have policies ready in case of an early election. And you can read my full plan to do that. It's actually, the platform that we have is actually 3 documents. There's the platform, there's the jump-started policy development plan, and there's a training plan and schedule. The policy development plan, you can find that at timetowin.ca/policy process. We also have to emphasize, on the last point on policy development, urban and northern policy. These are unique areas of our province that have, in particular, very particular needs. We need to gain seats in both those areas, obviously, of the province, and we have to look at our policies, not just policies created for the urban and northern areas, but we have to look at other policies through our other policy advisory committees through a northern and urban lens to make sure that we're not hurting ourselves in those crucial areas. The 4th part of my plan is training, development, and outreach. Strong local campaigns, I've said many times, are critical to winning the next election, and training is critical to that success. I see a year-round permanent training program for all riding associations and volunteers. This is something I know how to do. I did it when I was vice president of the Federal Conservative Party, when I founded and ran the Conservative Campaign University, an in-person and online resource for campaign managers, riding presidents, and volunteers. I've actually put a full training plan and calendar up on my website that you can read at timetowin.ca/training. It includes programs for board members, for campaign managers, campaign teams, candidates, campus activists, community activists, and official agents. And I want to see that training live on the internet and live and on demand over the internet, on the road in cities throughout Ontario and on university campuses. The training plan that I've set out starts in March of 2012. The next point that I want to make is outreach, which I think is absolutely vital if we're going to win the next election. We need to go beyond just encouraging people to attend community functions in diverse communities. We need a full outreach plan, and only when we integrate members of our diverse communities into our executive boards, our committees, events, deliberations, and policy-making processes will we fully earn their support. We need to understand the aspirations of our diverse communities and communicate with them about our beliefs. The future of the party also depends on youth. I'm asked very often, it's mostly by folks, frankly, with gray hair, what we're going to do for the youth of our party. And I think it's very important. I've always felt that the youth are the future of the party. There's a few things we need to do to foster and encourage youth participation. Number one, we need to have training segments devoted to youth activism. In particular, we need to give those training sessions on campus, because I see that as the first point of entry for a lot of activists into our party. We've got to increase mentorship and internship opportunities. We've got to help our youth organizations engage and recruit young people on campus and in other places. We've also got to set out a defined budget for youth activities and programs and help our youth organizations leverage those funds. I also think that we should formalize, there's kind of an informal youth PAC that's out there that the youth members have been working on. I think we should formalize that PAC and we should include it into our party for discussion of policies and our platform. Lastly, we've got to work on support that actually works for our ridings. I've talked often about local control of local campaigns, which I believe is absolutely crucial to winning. Local campaigns know their communities far better than the central campaign team. We can't impose a single campaign plan, the same literature, and the same one-size cookie-cutter approach on every riding. Supports that work for ridings means things as providing materials to riding associations and local campaigns in a format that can be edited as a local campaign or local riding sees fit. While local campaigns have to adhere to the central messaging, to the party platform, they should be able to adjust the exact photos, the graphics, and the text to suit their local needs, which might need to be different in different ridings. It also means ensuring that riding associations and local campaigns have professional quality material without demanding a one-size-fits-all prepackaged products be used. So we're going to make available the expertise that exists in our party, whether it's at the central campaign team level, whether it's at headquarters, or whether even a lot of our caucus staff. I remember in my time working as a caucus staffer, oftentimes our staff wanted to volunteer their efforts, of course, outside of working hours, for the party and for the local associations, and oftentimes they were told not to, that they worked only for the central campaign or for headquarters. I think that's wrong, and I think we've got to make the graphic designers, the copy editors, and the others that we have, the other experts that we have in our party available to our local teams. And it also means making a member service commitment to the ridings so that when members and volunteers look to the executive or headquarters for help, again, their calls and emails should be returned promptly and given full and proper attention. And if you can't get a satisfactory answer, whether it's on the supports that you're looking for, or maybe it's the nomination process, or whatever, you should have direct access to me as your party president, if I should be elected party president. These changes that I'm proposing are central to restoring the respect for our local decisions and knowledge and our local associations. Frankly, it's a perfectly straightforward reason that I'm proposing to do this. It's because I think it'll help us win. Strong leadership from Tim Hudak is only part of the winning equation. We need a strong ground game from our local campaigns, working from the same script as the leader, and supported, not ignored or dictated to by the central campaign. It's time to bring our party back to our local roots. This is the key to victory. I urge you again, everybody who's online or on the phone or in the room, to please check out the full platform and to give me your feedback and comments as well at timetowin.ca/platform. There's a lot of reading material there. There's also some videos of me speaking to all the points, and also you can review the background material that's behind it. Again, I would really welcome questions and feedback tonight. I just want to make it clear as well that this process has been part of a lengthy process unveiling the platform tonight. There's a lot of people who've put work into it, and moreover, there's a lot of people who have given input into it. Frankly, there are comparatively few people that I've met throughout the province and riding associations and at local meetings who didn't have ideas that we were able to integrate in some way into our platform. So thanks again. I'll turn it over to my very capable host, Lisa McLeod.
Well, thanks very much, Richard. I think that was very inspiring to talk about public policy and party policy and the process. Ladies and gentlemen, we are joined by folks across Ontario by phone and by web chat. We have about 100 people here. Well over 5,000 people have tuned in to Time to win.ca, as well as to this online phone forum to talk to Richard. So for those of you who are just joining us, I'm Lisa MacLeod, the Nepean Carleton MPP. I'm here hosting Richard Ciano's live campaign policy launch. Richard is here in Brampton answering your questions. Also, for those of you online at time2win.ca, again, if you are on the phone and you wish to ask a question, press *3 and you'll be put in the queue. And I know we have a number of questions that we'll get to in a second. If you are online, enter the chat room. Click on the right arrow on the right side of the video and click on chat. You can add your question there. And ladies and gentlemen, there is a 3 or 4 second time delay given the technology. So ladies and gentlemen, we'll go to our first question. Kirsten, are you on the line?
Hello?
Hi, Kirsten. You're free to speak. It's Lisa MacLeod, MPP. I'm here with Richard Ciano, our party president candidate.
Hi. Yes, I do have a question. My question is a policy question. I would like to see solid conservative policies. I was wondering, how do we make sure that the policies that the grassroots process comes up with are actually used in the platform?
Yeah, that's a great question. Absolutely, I agree with you that having meaningful policy and having a meaningful policy and platform development process is absolutely essential. I think number one, we've got to sort of start with the theory behind it. We've got to renew a commitment to actually doing grassroots policy in this party. I also think that we've actually got to lay out very clearly that the Constitution does spell out what the policy process is. There's the PACs, there's the policy committee of the party. I think we've actually got to follow through with that and actually respect it. Lastly, I've added that I think we need that accountability measure. A lot of the time, and even in the last couple elections, the PACs were there. There were volunteers doing the work of the PACs and putting in countless hours and effort. It's just at the end of the day, their ideas were discarded. So I think that accountability measure of actually requiring the campaign team to come before the policy committee of the party and justify why work of the PACs was left out, if it's left out, or why it was changed and so on, or why something else was substituted in its place. There are reasons why the policy may not be included in the platform. I understand that. It could be an issue of there's things that contradict it in other parts. There's reasons why it wouldn't be included. But they should at least have the members and the volunteers on the PAC committees should at least get the respect of having an explanation as to why that policy wasn't included in the platform. And that accountability measure, I think, is essential to making that happen. So.
Thanks very much, Richard. Ladies and gentlemen, again, *3 on your phone if you'd like to ask a question, or go to time2win.ca, click on the right arrow on the right side of the video, and add your question there. Ladies and gentlemen, as I mentioned, Richard Ciano has an overwhelming number of our caucus in the Ontario PC caucus supporting him, and I'm pleased that one of my good friends, call him the King of the North, in the caucus, Vic Fideli, is online, and we'd like to invite Vic to share a few words of support for Richard.
Thank you, Lisa. Really appreciate your kind words. Richard, congratulations on a wonderful launch. There were a few words that you said that really struck home. You talked about a Northern PAC. Really pleased to hear that. You also talked about a Toronto PAC. I just can't tell you how important I believe that is going to be to win the next election. You also talked about an outreach program, obviously something that's tremendously important. The campaign training, I thought that was one of the best things that we did in this past election was this 3 sessions of campaign training, and I think to have your idea of having it as an ongoing program for candidates, for campaign managers, for riding presidents, I really like that. And most of all, Richard, I really like hearing one size does not fit all. That's something that we've heard from so many of the candidates who were successful and those, sadly, who weren't successful. And so really pleased at this overall package that you and the team have put together. To me, it really is a package that shows it's time for us to win.
Thanks very much, Vic, and I really appreciate your coming on tonight, and I really appreciate all your support throughout the campaign. I have two fantastic co-chairs, obviously other caucus members who are supporting me and being very helpful as well. Thank you, Lisa. But it's no accident, actually, Vic, that I chose you and Peter, apart from the fact that I think you're great guys and fabulous MPPs, and I know you and have had experience with both of you. I also thought there was something to choosing co-chairs, one who's the closest MPP to the City of Toronto, and Peter Sherman, and then you, Vic, our northern most member of caucus. I thought it was important to reflect that breadth of diversity in the province. So again, thank you for your kind words, Vic, and Happy New Year as well, and hope to see you soon.
Thanks very much, Vic, and thank you, Richard. We now have an online question from John Mason, and John has an important question. He asks, from my experience, the open, public, and democratic process exists in theory but not in practice. How do you ensure that it's put into practice? And that comes from John Mason.
Yeah. Thank you. That's an excellent question, John. I'll actually say it's amazing. If there's one policy that I get sort of the most pushback, let's say, from the insider types in the party, I won't name names or say who we're talking about here, but I think we all know the kind of people I mean. It's on my emphasis on fair, open, and competitive nominations. Even though, you're right, John, to say that it's actually spelled out explicitly in our party constitution that our nomination meetings have to be public, fair, and democratic. So, that disconnect has happened over the last few elections, clearly, where the status quo has become that there's a lot of interference, frankly, way too much interference in our local candidate nominations. I think the number one, again, having served for 4 years as National Vice President of the Conservative Party of Canada, we had a lot of sticky nomination issues that we had to deal with. I served for almost the entire duration of that time on council on the National Candidate Search Committee. And we often had disputes at the riding level. We often had the political operations staff hoping for a particular outcome, I'll put it gently, in a particular nomination. But we nonetheless maintained a commitment to having a rules-based system that was fair and ultimately let the members in the local ridings choose their candidate. And I think the most important part of that is the green light process that I've set out, where we say, look, you apply to be a candidate. Not everyone is suitable to be an Ontario PC candidate. I know there are folks that will get their hopes up on this one, but we're going to screen candidates. In fact, I think that screening has to be more thorough than it's been. I mean, I don't mean to make light, but somebody slipped through the dragnet last time that was about to be charged, I think, with 50 counts of fraud. So we have to screen candidates extremely carefully in this day and age. But once we screen them, we should let them know if they can or can't run. And the decision isn't riding specific. It's you're not suitable to be a candidate in X riding. You're suitable to be a candidate or not. And then let the local members decide whether they want that person as their candidate or not. So again, that's my formula for how we're going to do it and how it's going to be fair. I know that in practice in recent years it's been different, but that's the process that I'm committed to putting into place. So thanks again for the question, John.
Well, thanks very much, John, and thank you, Richard. I think your commitment to the grassroots of our party is something to be commended, and I think many would agree. We have another component of this telephone and webcast town hall. We're also asking you to vote for a poll question. So, ladies and gentlemen, if you're online or you're on the phone, please answer the following poll question. Number one, do you plan to become a delegate and attend the convention in Niagara Falls? For yes, press 1. For no, press 2. And for not sure, press 3. So again, that is, do you plan to become a delegate and attend the convention in Niagara Falls? Yes, press 1. No, press 2. And 3, not sure. You'll be able to vote for the next few seconds. And ladies and gentlemen, we're going to go to question number 3 from Gareth. And Gareth, are you on the line?
Yes, I am. Thanks, Lisa. My question for Richard is quite simple. You mentioned Campaign University, and it was quite a valuable tool for us at the federal level back in 2006 in the campaign I was a part of. My question is, if you were elected as the president of the PC party, will you in fact bring back the Campaign University to the PC party? And if you do, what kind of benefits are there going to be for us at the local level?
Sure. Thank you, and I certainly appreciate the feedback on what you thought of Conservative Campaign University. I guess it's the Ontario PC Party. We'll have to call it something different, or we'll get a nasty letter or something from the federal party. But yeah, I intend to build something very similar to what we had at the federal level. I've set out a full training plan. You'll find that online. timetowin.ca/training. I think that training we should start basically right away, right after the convention. I believe we start the first or second Saturday in March that we propose to start. And it should be basically, I'm prepared to spend the time and effort on it to run it every other Saturday. Frankly, one of the things I've often lamented is that when we first did that Conservative Campaign University, a lot of the tools that we had to use to do it were actually very new. We had to sort of jerry-rig things in order to do that training and make it work. We actually did it live in 7 different regional centers across the country. We were working in different time zones. In Ontario, we just have the different time zone up there in Kenora, but still. But the actual technological processes that we had to use to do it were quite a bit more complicated and involved than they are today. Today, the tools to do web and online training are really straightforward and simple and much more inexpensive. So live, I think, on the web and on demand on the web are crucial. What are the benefits? Benefits are you're going to have a lot more access to campaign manager training, to training for your campaign team, for your official agents, for your board. I think that's something where we're really sadly lacking in terms of the amount of instruction we give to local board members. It's becoming more and more involved to run a good, solid riding association, and I think we need that training resources, those training resources available. And I think obviously the benefit is in terms of best practices and knowledge that you'll get, but also that engagement and camaraderie that it builds, and interest that it builds as well. So I'm a super fan of training, obviously, and I can't wait to get back at it and build a really solid training program for our Ontario PC Party. So.
Thanks very much, Richard, and thank you, Gareth, for that question. Ladies and gentlemen, I've done one of these telephone town halls with my constituents, and it's never easy to be under fire for a good hour and a half, and I want to commend Richard for being able to do this with about 5,000 progressive conservatives from across Ontario on the line right now. Look, if you want a question, please hit *3 on the phone, or you can ask a question in the chat room online at timetowin.ca. In the meantime, my colleague, Peter Sherman, is on the line. One of my closest friends in caucus. He's just an all-around great guy. Peter, are you there?
I'm absolutely here, Lisa, and you shouldn't be telling those lies about me, but Happy New Year to you, Happy New Year to Richard, and to everybody who's listening to us. It's a remarkable situation to be in the early days of January, the frozen early days of January, and have so many people so vitally interested. And I have to say it, not 4 months after we lost an election. And that's the reason why we need Richard. Let me begin by saying a couple of things. First, when Richard launched this campaign for president, I got on the line as one of the co-chairs with Vic Fideli, and I said, you know, if you take a look at all of the pictures of all of the elections that Richard's been involved in, they're always pictures of a victor, and Richard's always standing behind them. And I have 2 of them to prove it, because Richard was my campaign manager in 2007. He was my campaign chair in 2011, and anytime we run, he can come on board again. I guess as president, he won't be able to do it. Let's hope that's what happens. We have 3 good candidates for president running this time, but we have only one that I believe can truly take us the distance, and that's Richard Ciano. And that's why I jumped at the chance when he asked to participate as co-chair in this campaign. I read the platform Time to Win over the course of the latter part of last week and over the weekend, and all of the elements are there. The things that we haven't done, the things that we as a party have fallen down on, and the things that have cost us government, frankly, are the things that Richard addresses best. Richard understands the ground game. Richard understands what happens in the ridings. Richard understands what happens when you have a very strong executive with a weak candidate, and he understands what happens when you have a very strong candidate with no riding organization. All of these things come into play. He also understands the dynamic of Ontario and the dynamic of some of the ridings that are, quite frankly, a lot like mine. Earlier, somebody said, Peter Sherman is the closest guy we've got to Toronto. I think Richard said it. And I am. And there's a piece of me that should be proud of that. But there's a piece of me that doesn't feel pride in that. It feels a bit of disillusionment, because to be on the border, the northern border of Toronto, knowing that we don't have anybody representing the 416, is not only a disappointment, it means that about 3 million of our colleague Ontarians are not represented by Conservatives, when, believe me, folks, I can say this as finance critic as well, they need representation by Conservatives. And we have to address the Toronto situation in a very real way. Those of you who are not fans of Toronto, who live further in the hinterland, have to understand that without Toronto and a substantial number of seats in the 416 and the near 905, we can't win an election. Richard understands that, along with all the things he's been talking to you about tonight. And Richard is the only guy who, as president of the party, I can truly say that I would rely on to help get us there, along with the great leadership of Tim Hudak, my fabulous caucus colleagues, all 36 of them, including Elmac, Lisa McLeod, my friend, and the person who's sharing this phone call tonight. So, Richard, I want to say that, as usual, you picked a great slogan. Time to win, it certainly is, and I know you're going to. Congratulations.
Thanks very much, Peter. And you said there, you've got the pictures, all these pictures of me on winning campaigns to prove my involvement in only winning campaigns. I just do a good job of getting rid of the photo evidence of all the losing campaigns that I've been on as well. So I just thought I'd come clean on that one. But thanks again, Peter, for your kind words and for joining us tonight. So.
Yeah, thanks very much. Well, I call him Shermanator. He calls me Elmac. So we have our offices are also side by side of the fourth floor. Look, I think that Peter eloquently stated Richard's record of success, and I think the three caucus members that spoke tonight, myself, Rich, with Peter, as well as with Vic, all have positive experiences in having worked with Richard Ciano at the grassroots level, where he has helped us succeed. And that record of success, I think, is going to be key to winning the next election. Ladies and gentlemen, we have a question here from our audience in Brampton. And Rose, I would like, Roz, sorry, I apologize. Please feel free to ask your question and say it loud enough so everybody at home can hear.
Okay. Hi, everyone, and Happy New Year to everyone who's listening and to everybody who's in the room, and to you, my Richard. My question is, you keep on saying the grassroots level, you want to get back to the grassroots level, and yet when it comes to your conventions, you've priced it that the grassroots level can't be there. It's too bloody expensive. That's it in a nutshell. So how do we bring it back down to the grassroots level when you've not half your grassroots level right out of the picture before you even start?
Roz, thanks for the question. I'll just repeat it in case folks can't hear it online or on the telephone here. The question was basically why is the convention so expensive, and is that going to harm participation from the grassroots? Look, that's one where I can sort of say it's a difficult challenge. I sympathize with the folks organizing the convention. When we ran conventions federally, we were getting up to the point where they were $4.99. This convention, the early bird rate, I know it's a lot of money, but this convention, if you sign up by the early bird deadline, which I believe is January 20th or 21st, in that ballpark there, it's $2.99. Again, it's $4.99 and $500 plus when you get into federal conventions because of simultaneous translation and so on.
You don't have to get there.
I know.
You have your meals.
Absolutely. You're right. It is very difficult. One thing I certainly encourage folks to do, those ridings that have the money, you have to recognize a lot of our riding associations don't have the available funds to subsidize their delegates. I certainly encourage those ridings that do have positive bank balances to subsidize their delegates to come to the convention. That's one way to ease some of the strain. And some folks don't need that support. Some people are okay financially and aren't concerned about that, and they can refuse the financial support. But Roz, I appreciate some people. It's going to keep some people back. That it costs $299 plus hotel plus et cetera, do recognize, I see someone's hand up at the back there, there are tax credits on the actual delegate fees as well. So the delegate hit isn't that bad in and of itself. And certainly I would encourage those ridings that have the funds to try and pitch in and at least help our delegates come, because we do. Particularly this convention, it's essential that we get a really big turnout. As folks have mentioned, we did lose the election. That is tough to take. We absolutely need to give our leader, Tim Hudak, a resounding show of support and strong mandate to lead the party again. And so I don't want to leave people on the bench who can't afford to come. So it's my hope that we'll support as many people as possibly can. So
thanks, Richard. And Roz, that's a great point that you brought up. And it reminds me to remind all of you here in Brampton, but also across Ontario, who are on the phone or on timetowin.ca right now, that only people who are delegates can vote for Richard at the convention. And that's why it's important to go to your delegate selection meeting. I believe there are about 40 coming up in the next couple of weeks. So please check the party website, contact your riding president. It's important that you are a delegate in order to support Richard and bring the change that we need to the party structure. You can go to timetowin.ca or email Richard at richard@richardciano.ca. Ladies and gentlemen, I'm going to go to question number 5. And Lynn, you're on the line. Lynn, can we have your question, please?
Yes, thank you, Lisa. This is for Richard, and you spoke earlier about the next election. And with regard to that, I wondered if it would be beneficial if the party could produce some kind of handbook that could be given out to all the local organizers. A lot of times it's brand new people trying to get the ball rolling, and, it's very hectic. And if we had a little handbook with helpful guidelines and information, it would help us get things rolling a little quicker.
Yeah, absolutely. Are you thinking more for? I assume you're talking more about for the board side of things, for the riding association board.
Well, just something that's right across the province of what the goals are, how to approach things, different avenues to go down. It's just, like I said, a lot of times people are brand new volunteers and they're suddenly thrust into this position. And if there was something that was standard right across the party, it would save a lot of people from reinventing the wheel. Yeah,
Lynn, I absolutely agree with you. I think it's a great point and great idea. It would absolutely be part of the training program. I'm thinking more along the lines for board members. It would include some content about campaign-oriented issues as well. But absolutely, a handbook should be part of that basic orientation for all riding association members. We turn riding association board members. We turn our board members over. Every year there's an AGM usually at the riding level, and new folks come on. And how often do we have training sessions for board members? Certainly not every year. So there's a real gap there. And although I think we should have them at least every year, having a handbook as well to go along with it. Here you go. Congratulations on becoming a board member in your riding. Here's your handbook. Here's when the next training session is. Absolutely, that has to be done. So thank you.
Richard,
oh, okay.
Sorry about that, Lynn.
We lost Lynn.
We lost you. If you're listening, I know you had a follow-up question. Can you email Richard at richard@richardciano.ca? Again, ladies and gentlemen, over 5,000 progressive conservatives on the line to listen to Richard Ciano's detailed policy launch for president. We're going to go to another question we have from online, from Guilford 1. What role do you see the youth playing in the next little bit of the PCPO?
Okay, so thank you for that question. I know it sounds like a fluffy statement when you say that the youth are the future of the party, but it's absolutely true and essential. I know, in our riding in Thornhill, where I was the campaign chair last time, I wonder, actually, Goldford won. I wonder if that's Zach Goldford, who's our youth president there in the riding. Probably makes sense that it would be. The youth play a huge role in terms of bringing enthusiasm and energy to our local campaigns. I think we've got to do more to engage youth. I think there's a few things. I've talked to Ian Merkley, who's the incoming youth president. I've talked to others as well. Eric Merkley, a former president, and Aaron Hunt and others who are very involved in the youth. What we need to do, first of all, I think we should formalize, as I mentioned before, that youth pack that they have going. I think we've got to have training, particularly focused on youth and campus activities. And I think we've just got to support the youth, not only with, I've said, stable, clear funding and leverage to help spend it, and ideas and products to work with them, both on campus and in other places where we can attract and have youth involved. And I think we've got to just get youth involved really at every level that we can in our party.
That's great, Richard. Thank you very much. And thank you, Zach. That's who I thought it was, too. He's a dynamo, that young fella.
He is.
Ladies and gentlemen, we are going to go back to another poll question. We have just a few minutes left on this teletown hall. The next question is, and please use your touch tone pad, as well as if you're on timetowin.ca, vote, please. Who do you support for president of the Ontario PC Party? Press 1 for Richard Ciano. Press 2 for John Snoblin. Press 3 for Kevin Gadet, or 4, not sure or undecided. I'll repeat that quickly again. If you are supporting Richard Ciano, press 1. John Snoblin, press 2. Kevin Gadet, number 3, or 4 for not sure and undecided. Ladies and gentlemen, that concludes our telephone and our live broadcast here today on the web with Richard Ciano. And I'd like Richard to say some concluding remarks to your over 5,000 followers and fans across Ontario.
Thank you very much, Lisa. And I just want to start by thanking you for helping me pull off this event tonight. You've done a super job as a moderator. It's never easy to get put into that role and have to carry the ball that way. So thank you very much. I know you came all the way from Ottawa as well to be part of that.
Which is, by the way, I'm the only MPP in the entire city of Ottawa.
Oh, there you go.
Yeah.
So a little plug there.
Might be close to Toronto, but I'm actually a city MPP.
There you go. Thank you. Thank you, Lisa. And you're a dynamic member of the legislature, as everyone well knows, too. So I'm really grateful for your support and involvement. Again, I want to thank everybody who, we're just getting over the holidays, and obviously some are probably still getting over exuberant New Year's celebrations and turkey hangovers, as they say, as well, maybe. So I appreciate that you've all taken time, those of you that have come in person today, those of you that are online and on the phone, to spend time to learn about my platform. Again, even though I definitely inspired the work of the platform by setting out the priorities for my campaign, there are a lot of people put a lot of work into the platform, not just earlier in the campaign, but also over the holidays as well. A lot of people put a lot of time in. So please give them some courtesy of having a look. It's not a selfish pitch on my part. I'm actually asking you to have a look at the platform for the sake of everybody who gave their input and the many hundreds of volunteers and activists who had a say. Please have a look. I'm really proud of the platform document. It's a very strong document. It's comprehensive. It's well thought out, I believe, and it's worthy of your attention. So please do have a look at timetowin.ca /platform. And again, please provide your feedback. It's meant to be a living and breathing document. It's meant to get your feedback. And again, it's going to stay, I want to emphasize the point that it's going to stay online for the duration of my presidency, and that you'll be able to hold me to account throughout the course of my presidency, whether we meet the goals that we've set out in that platform. So again, with that, I'll thank everybody for their participation, and good night. I look forward to seeing you.
So, ladies and gentlemen, that concludes our town hall.